Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to another edition of Gaming News Weekly with your hosts, as ever, me, Tabs, my good friend, channel compadre Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello, how are we doing? Welcome to the channel.
Hope you're all well. If you're regulars, you know what how we roll. But if you're not and you're new to the channel, then this is a weekly gaming news show. So we cover off three main stories, the juiciest we could find in any given week in the main. And then we follow that up with what we call everything else, which is like a quick fire, rapid round of everything we couldn't really feature and some little tidbits. But before we do that, we always chat about what we've been playing in this given week in our, gaming worlds, which invariably over the last few weeks, Rich, has been a bit brief and a bit one note, and I fear it's going to carry on in the same vein. But before we get into that, BArcadians, people watching for the first time, please give us a like if you can before we crack on. Really helps us to pierce through that YouTube algorithm. But mate, what have you been playing this week?
Well, I've actually done a lot of gaming this week. I've put in quite a lot of hours on, no great surprise, Death Stranding. Weirdly, I've found myself doing lots of things in Death Stranding that I didn't do in my first playthrough. So oddly, it's like I'm playing a new game. So that is a little bit like I was saying to the missus, I was saying, I'm playing this game for the second time, having completed it, but I'm doing loads of things that I never did before. So it's sort of like playing it new, fresh again. So I've really enjoyed that this week. And I think I mentioned last week, I'm up into the mountains, and I hated the mountains last time round, but I have sorted the mountains out properly good this time, which has meant getting around is a lot easier with various bits of infrastructure. So
you're building all the roads, aren't you, basically, mate? You're building all the roads.
Yeah, so I've got 3 road pieces left to build, and that's the entire road network on the entire game done, which is good. But I've also been using a lot of zip lines, just loads of zip lines, which means you can just zip around and basically avoid the snow terrain and the BTs, which is really good. But enough about Death Stranding. What have you been playing, Tabs?
Zero! Absolutely nothing for me, mate.
So, back to Death Stranding.
Yeah, I have been playing it, of course, but I've just not had the will, compulsion, desire to play it. I would say the past 2 weeks. I hope to pick it back up again. I'm going to play a bit of Call of Duty later. That will be
nice.
I'm terrible at the game, but I touch base on that once a week with a friend. And apart from that, I do, and we'll come to it. We've got a story that we're going to feature in the main about GTA Trilogy. That's the next one that's tempting me as a bite-size sort of experience that I'll be able to jump in and out of, hopefully on the Switch. But what I'm waiting to see is how it runs. Go on, mate. You had something to say.
Yeah, you were telling me, I think it was at the weekend, that you were saying that you understand why IGN gave Death Stranding a 6 out of 10 now, and that's why you've not been playing it. Is that right?
Absolutely preposterous. No, I'm still in the camp of what was that review all about? It was. Yeah. Agreed. Anyway, we won't go into it. Let's move on to the first story today, which reads Steamdeck delay, and this information comes from Eurogame, who had this to say: Valve has announced a delay for Steamdeck. The portable gaming PC will no longer begin shipping at the end of this year as initially planned, and will now start making its way to customers in February 2022. Those that successfully managed to surmount some early technical hitches and join the front of the queue when Steam Deck reservations opened back in July were originally due to receive their hardware in December this year. Unfortunately, those Christmases will now be just a little less merry thanks to disruptions in production caused by a lack of available parts. So, another victim of the chip shortage, unfortunately. While we did our best to account for the global supply chain issues, by which we mean we factored in extra time to account for these risks and worked with multiple component vendors, Valve explained, material shortages and delays meant that components weren't making out to our manufacturing facilities on time, it continued. Missing parts along with logistical challenges means delayed Steam Deck, so we needed to push out shipping by 2 months to February. So yeah, bad news for anybody excited about the Steam Deck, and I know there's definitely a cult following out there, I'm sure. I don't know if it's too many children at Christmas are going to be bothered by it. I don't think it's quite marketed at them, but Yeah, it's a shame to see another victim of this global chip shortage, and you know, I think they would have really tried everything they could to prevent this from happening, yet it still happened, which probably gives you some insight into how difficult it's been for businesses, companies, manufacturers this year, last year or so. But you know what? Maybe it gives them a bit of extra time to put into the software and the infrastructure around the Steamdeck, and maybe they can kind of turn it into a, you know, salvage a silver lining from the whole thing. And I think, you know, most people will be prepared to wait, won't they? They've got this reservation system still carrying through, and I'm sure there'll be plenty to enjoy this Christmas anyway. But I'll tell you what, mate, 2022 is going to be busy as if you're a gamer, isn't it? With all the games coming out, and then Steam Deck as well now. It's just going to be a mental year. But
yeah, I do really feel like we've got like almost like a bottleneck of releases of hardware, software, lots of different things, this being one of them. And I feel like we're going to get into the Q1 of next year, and the lid's going to come off the bottle, and it's just going to flow all year. I think we're going to see, I think it could be an incredible year for gaming next year. You know, both with things like this, pieces of hardware, and for games. And I just think we're going to literally be bouncing from like one thing to another, to the point where we're not going to know what to do with ourselves in terms of what to play next.
I really hope so. I hope we don't have like a scenario where we get these semi-good game experiences that hit day one and have loads of problems, you know, a bit like Cyberpunk or whatever. Because I think that's still a possibility, that they'll just try and churn stuff out and hit deadlines. But I think a lot of the caliber of the games we're seeing, I just don't think they can afford to risk it. So yeah, hopefully, like you say, it's going to be banger after banger after banger.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
I just hope by then, mate, my personal project is going to be, yeah, I'm going to be able to make room for video games. Otherwise, mate, I'm going to have to live it and breathe it through you, vicariously.
That's a shame. Yeah, so it's a shame on this, but I do think it's one of those. I think we're coming to the end of these, so we're starting to see much improvements in terms of products starting to come through, where, you know, the chip shortage has put lead times back and back and back. We are starting to now see, you know, the influx of products moving forwards. You know, they're saying they've got on top of the PlayStation 5 production stuff. So I do think we are starting to sort of come to a better time. I think I've read this, it's a long-term fix to sort the chip shortage long-term, but I think we are starting to see better things, and I think this is sort of showing, you know, it's only a 2-month delay at the end of the day, so I think we're starting to see better things coming from, you know, the chip shortage, and we're starting to see the industry move a little bit, so excited for that.
Move us on, my friend. Story number 2 today.
Absolutely. So, Elden Ring closed beta reception. I'll just put a little spoiler at the start. Exceptional, from my perspective, anyway. But we'll go through and tell you what the Guardian had to say about this, and they had this to say.
I mean, I'll preface it, mate. I think they mentioned Breath of the Wild 3 times in this article, but carry on.
Excellent, absolutely excellent. Perhaps this is 12 years worth of Souls experience talking, but I also didn't find it off-puttingly difficult. Elden Ring's bosses are formidable, and I don't mind admitting that I got nowhere with the demo's final gatekeeper, Margit, a hideous giant with bits of tree growing out of his face, who has a giant sword and a scorpion tail to smash you up with. I always knew when I was in a dangerous area or about to face a particularly hard opponent, and crucially, I could run away if I wanted to. This is more the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, in that you can get yourself into and out of trouble with delightful ease, escaping sticky situations and returning later when you're feeling braver. Breath of the Wild kept surfacing in my memory as I played Elden Ring along with 10-year-old Bethesda fantasy classic Skyrim. At least in the previewed sections, this has a high fantasy aesthetic vibe with colour and light and gold glinting sunshine in place of other Miyazaki games' oppressive, unrelenting darkness. And the way the world is laid out, with enticing structures just visible in the distance, and caves and catacombs, and tucked away little pockets of land that provide ideal hiding places for interesting creatures or treasure, encourage adventurousness and curiosity rather than hesitance and terror. Elden Ring has a multiplayer, Like in Dark Souls, you can summon other players to help you or invade their worlds to duel them. I found a lake that was home to a dragon and catacombs that spooked me too much to delve too deep. These sound like fantasy tropes, but there is nothing generic about Elden Ring's alluringly creepy and submersive art direction, or the way it makes you feel when you're fighting its creatures, sword in hand and heart in mouth. Exploring the lands between, I was struck by how much this felt like an adventure rather than a gauntlet. It's like a collision between two of my favourite games of the last decade, Dark Souls and Breath of the Wild, and that is a comparison that should excite anyone.
Well done for getting through that, mate. There was some horrible sentences.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I have to say I've watched Skill Up's like take on this, and if you want to go and watch that, go and visit his channel. It's very good. I really enjoyed what I was seeing. I love the fact that it really. We've recently played Demon's Souls, and by recent I mean when the PS5 came out, and we really enjoyed that. We really enjoyed playing it together. And I have to say, we loved the grindy aspect of that game, but it was very narrow. You know, there was very limited on where you could go. It was very much leading you through a path. Whereas this is like, it looks exactly like that, but you're free to go wherever you want. You know, and because of that, there's lots of like secrets and hidden bits for you to explore, places where you don't think there'll be anything. There's like a dungeon to go into, and it really looks like a really well thought out game. And I have to say, I'm impressed with how well they've managed to like shoehorn in a sort of Demon's Souls, Dark Souls type game into an open world. It really looks like they've done a very, very good job on that. So I'm extremely excited to play this, and I hope me and Tabs can play this together. Tabs, what do you got to say on it?
Yeah, I felt the same, mate. Everything I've seen, and I've seen the Skill Up Impressions piece as well, just, it looks great. I know some people have been a bit critical of the fact that it's, you know, using an older engine perhaps, but I still think it looks striking and stunning. I'm very happy with it. So yeah, I think just the Demon's Souls, the nature of that game, because it's open world now, that seems to have done something to perhaps open up that difficulty, because you're not like shoved in corridors with nowhere to go or run to. So I feel like that in itself is just going to make it much more accessible as well for a lot more people. I think for me, my hopes are, like you said there about, you know, them hiding things, and Skill Up mentions that, doesn't he? That unless you really comb over everywhere, you can miss things in this world, because it's quite dense and there's a lot of secrets to be found and had. That can be game changing, I think, in terms of the way you play it. But yeah, for me, I really hope they double down on that. Like, I want to see like loads of unique monsters and bosses. I want to see loads of little secrets that are really meaningful as well, if you happen to find them. All the stuff we loved about Zelda, like, you know, finding the giant horse. What else was it, mate? Eventide Isle, discovering that for the first time. All these really kind of unique, cool, meaningful discoveries, you want those dotted around everywhere. And it sounds like, from this huge kind of closed beta behind the scenes play session, it should deliver on that. We just don't quite know the scale of it at this stage and how big it is, you know, in the full version. So touch wood, fingers crossed, but really super hopeful. And
absolutely, and I'm looking forward to exploring all those secret areas with you, mate. So something to look forward to.
Exactly, my friend. Magic build, we will embrace though this time.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
So last story of the day.
Take us away.
It reads GTA Trilogy Impressions, and the reason I say impressions is when we film on a Thursday, there's currently, or at least we couldn't find any reviews apart from Dreamcast Guy on YouTube. There's no Metacritic score currently, no kind of big publication reviews out there. So we've got an impressions article from Push Square to read through, and then we can share another few tidbits that we've been hearing and just say what we can up to now. The Push Square said, it's early days of the GTA trilogy, which wasn't supposed to be playable yet, but is already being shared all over the web. A lot of the early footage looks really good. GTA San Andreas in particular is incredibly detailed in its new high-resolution format, but other parts don't show quite as well. One particular point of contention is the art style employed on some of the more disposable NPCs. Meanwhile, some have questioned Rockstar's decision to increase the draw distance, as the fogging caused by technical limitations in the original not only added to the atmosphere, but also provided a vastness that's just not present here. It's worth remembering that these are cherry-picked screenshots and aren't necessarily representative of the overall project and all of the work that's gone into it. Furthermore, these are not remakes like Mafia Definitive Edition and were never advertised as such. It's best to think of them as spruced up ports. Nevertheless, with talk of performance issues on the PS5, these aren't running at a locked 60 frames per second from what we've seen and heard. Wow. As well as some questionable artistic choices, it's somewhat disappointing to see these stone cold classics not get quite the TLC they deserve. So for me, mate, and we'll throw over to you shortly, but I would say Dreamcast Guy's review was a 9 out of 10, which is positive, but he definitely highlights some rough edges. I think I've seen an account of some glitches in different parts of the game. He highlights an invisible wall glitch as well. We've seen that the music list has actually been a little bit clipped. I think 95% are there, but there's a 5%, and some of those were quite important songs as far as the soundtracks go. And Dreamcast Guy kind of said in his review, Rockstar must be rolling in the green. Why can't they just, stump up this money to really, give these ports, these remasters, the money they deserve? And I kind of tend to agree with that. It feels like, as this article mentions, it's probably been a very transactional kind of strategy with regard to the budget. So they've looked at how much money they think they're going to recoup from this as a release, and they only want to invest a certain amount to make sure it makes business sense, or at least to fit what the profit margins they want. I just sometimes wish that they, a big company like Rockstar wouldn't do that. Give some back to the fans, be really hopeful, put as much resource as they can in to honour these classics and give them the premium treatment. And I'm not sure myself if I feel like they've given this, haven't they? Like outsourced a team to do this port and I feel like I've read that. Don't hold me to it. Let me know if I'm wrong. But that's what it kind of feels like here. That they've perhaps cut a few corners. It would have been nice, say, outsource it, fine, but then bring it back in house, and then maybe just do that last kind of layer of snagging and really, make it polish and shine. And it sounds like they're perhaps not done that. And one other thing that's important to me, mate, specifically, I think I read Spawnwave on Twitter earlier say that the frame rate on Vice City on the Switch is reportedly pretty poor. And I was hoping to get it on the Switch so I could play it on the go with my project at the minute. It's just much more convenient for me. And that's made me question now, should I get it? Because of that, I don't want to play some real sluggish experience. But what's your view on it all, mate?
It's hard not to feel a little bit disappointed. I mean, obviously, it's a weird one, isn't it? You don't want to be playing a game that's in theory got a re-release that's glitched more than the original. That's not something you want to do. That defeats the whole point of it. So a little bit disappointed by that. I don't know, I'm not sure about the art style. I know they've gone for that. I'm not sure. Like, I've seen a lot of shots of it now, and I don't know, it just looks a bit odd. I don't know. I'm not sold on the art style, but that's not taken away from the game. The game could be incredible still. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Again, I'm not sure I'm going to get this. I don't know whether I've got the time for it. But I have to say, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The time-conscious people, so, they're busy, struggling to find gaming, the Switch is the best thing to be able to pick up and play 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And if you're struggling for time, definitely the best console to buy it on. But if that's the one that's got the most glitches, yeah, you're sort of forcing your hand to maybe not getting it. So yeah, I don't know. I think, is there an element of waiting to see whether they patch this? Is this something that's like a simple patch and they're going to be able to fix it relatively easily? Is this a more fundamental thing like we've seen with Cyberpunk? It's hard to say. Hopefully we've got some information on that, which will hopefully help educate a decision on what platform to buy it on.
We know that developers do sometimes day one patch, and that could fix a litany of the issues. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think as well, the fact that Dreamcast Guy's given it a 9 out of 10 kind of suggests that it does retain a lot of the magic of the originals. But yeah, certainly for me on the Switch, again, it's that symptom of a lack of TLC, isn't it? That they've perhaps not optimized it for every single console because they've not really taken that time on it. And it'll be a shame, but we shall see. And I'm sure we can share more on that next week. But mate, should we wrap it up with everything else?
Absolutely. So first up, we've got Hogwarts Legacy will apparently come out after Fantastic Beasts 3, which I think has a time window of April to December next year. So there's your release window for that game, basically, sometime in that release window.
Excited for that. Neil Druckmann wraps up on The Last of Us TV show. Fingers crossed it's a good one.
So that's interesting. I don't believe they've finished filming, but I think he's finished his involvement in the show for now. Because he put out a tweet saying he was leaving Canada to go back to wherever he resides, I guess America, I don't know.
He's satisfied.
Moving on. eFootball 2022 launch update has been delayed until spring with refunds for premium players. Nightmare.
Konami at it again, setting fire to their most sought after IPs. Elden Ring will apparently have graphics and performance modes on PS5.
I thought that was an interesting one because we're both interested in that.
I'll go performance. I want 60 frames.
Yeah, I probably would on that game actually. I much prefer graphics in terms of games I'm playing at the moment. But yeah, I think that game, you want all the frames there. You don't want drop frames, don't you? Because there's a lot of timing and stuff in a game. Yeah. And then finally this week, EA Sports PGA Tour has been delayed indefinitely. Will this be at the end of PGA Tour golf with EA Sports? Who knows? Let's find out. But that's it.
Thank you, BArcadians, as ever, for getting this far, if indeed you did. I'm sure you've already smashed the like button, so I won't pester you with that again. But if you do like what we do, make sure you subscribe and you ring the bell for notifications to join us every week, Friday, 5 PM UK time, for Gaming News Weekly. And Rich, I think that's another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.